All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Tracy Rich, and I am the Vice President of Business Development here at Solver. And today we are excited to be presenting Filius Bonacci with the BI360 Streamlining Budgeting and Forecasting webinar. Presenting today is Art Fletcher, who is the President of Filius Bonacci. Art is a CMA, Certified Management Accountant, and he has a tremendous amount of experience having been through 3 IPOs. He's a prior CFO and VP of Finance. He's worked with international public accounting and has spent 25 plus years in finance and accounting. We're really lucky because Filius Bonacci and Art have been a partner of ours for 4 years. They've been involved in over 40 implementations and have implemented BI360 with clients across the U.S. and across many different industries. So today, Art will be presenting BI360 as it relates to streamlining your budgeting and forecasting processes. So Art, I now pass the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and thank you everyone for joining us to talk about my favorite subject, which is budgeting and forecasting. I've spent a tremendous amount of my career doing the budgeting and forecast, and it's one of those people that was a little weird because I've always enjoyed that because it really gives me a core view of what's happening within the organization. So let's get started. Today we are going to go through the agenda. We're going to talk about the BI360, do an overview. We're going to talk about Solver. We're going to go over the architecture of BI360 and talk a little bit about the customers. And then we're going to go through the demo. We'll talk a little bit about the report designer, which is really important because that's where our planning and budgeting starts. Then we'll look at the core and the crux of the planning and forecasting, and then we'll summarize it up with any questions that may be coming across. As you can see in the little panel, there's a place where you can actually enter in any questions that you may have. Okay, let's talk about Filius Bonacci a little bit. Our view, we've got strong strengths in the budgeting and forecasting side of it, data visualization, the analysis that we need to run our businesses, and one of the things that we really like is that ability to have that push button reporting. We've got 25 years in data architecture. We have a proprietary engine that we have out there that will speed the integration between whatever data sources that you may have. And that becomes very important today because data is getting larger and doubling. It's like almost every 3 years now. To be able to move that data quickly is becoming a very important challenge, and it's something that we've been able to do with our engine. With the extract, transformation, and load of that data. We've been a Solver partner, like Tracy said, for 4 years, strong in the SQL side and Power BI. We've been a partner. The company's been around for 11 years, but the real core of our business is we are a business intelligence firm, and we take real-world solutions to create and help organizations move forward with their goals. So let's step back and talk about Solver. And Solver provides the software and the engine that is going to be running the budgeting and forecasting tool. And they are an award-winning global provider of corporate performance management. They've got 1,600 customers in 40 countries, and they've been around for about 17 years. So they've been in this BI space a long time. They know it well. They are a fast-growing company and with a very strong channel. One of the things I'm proud about the Solver side of it is they've been part of the Gartner's Magic Quadrant, and they're an independent company that goes out and looks at different companies and evaluates them. And to get on that list is a very prestigious list, and so to be on that, that's a pretty important recognition for the organization. So let's take a step back. What does BI360 tool, what do the tools do for us? Well, one of the keys, especially when you're looking at the budgeting forecasting side of the world, is in finance and accounting, we know Excel well. We love Excel. We've been doing Excel for a long time. We know our formulas. We know how to format. We're very quick in Excel. Well, the great thing about the tool is the tool lives in Excel, so we're going to leverage all that experience that you have to basically start building your reports and your budgeting. It also centralizes and streamlines your budgeting, and we'll talk a lot about that today. And it also eliminates, and this is a big one, the need to ask IT for assistance. Working on budgets for the number of years I have, there's so many times when I needed data, I'd go to IT, we'd get into a schedule, and finally, eventually I'd get that data, and by that time it was a little late to get my budgets out, so I had to do a lot of workarounds and gyrations to get that data. So some of the pain points that Solver solves, what it does is, that lack of insight, because I've got data throughout many systems, and be able to give you that insight, that's a major pain point. The manual process of putting data into Excel or extracting it from somewhere else, the data manipulation to get the reports to look just right, and the data integrity, that's another big pain point that we're seeing with a lot of customers that is solved. And bringing in data throughout the whole organization, and that may be data in your organization or outside your organization. This is a really exciting slide because it really demonstrates the before and after, cause and effect solution here. And we look at prior to BI360, what were people spending their time on? Well, part of it was just getting the reports out and doing the manipulation of the data and Excel jockeying. After they were done with BI360, they were turning that down to 30%, and they were spending 70% on the analysis. And a lot of times before, that analysis was, they just didn't have time to get to the analysis. So a lot of things were popping out, and they weren't really getting the insights that the data was talking to for their organization. So let's step back, and we're going to talk about the data architecture for BI360. And everything really centers around this data warehouse. And this is the central location of where we're going to put all our data. So if we look at our data sources, you could have data from your ERP system, which may be AX, could be GP, could be SAP, really doesn't matter what accounting system you may be using. Then you've got, let's say your payroll system. That payroll system could be in-house, maybe through GP, or it could be external. It could be ADP or Old Pro. We could pull that data in. Could be a CRM system. It could be a sales forecasting system. We really don't care what data source is in, and we've really been able to pull in some, really tough data sources, some old systems into that data warehouse, giving us that central view of that data. We've got Razanati and Pelota that's going to be monitoring and doing that integration for us. And that gives us the ability to get that speed that we're looking for in that integration side, and also has a very nice user interface. So when we want to do that on demand, we can put in the parameters that we're looking for that on demand and update that warehouse with the piece of information that I need to run that report. So if I finish that last journal entry, want to run the financial statements, I can run the update manual process, and the warehouse is updated and ready to do reporting. Once again, we talked about the reporting side of it and it being based out of Excel. We'll go into a little bit more detail about what that means. We also have an automation of how we distribute reports. So at the end of the day, if I've got 25 reports that I got to push out after I get my budgeting process done, I can push that button. It'll generate each one of those reports and distribute them either by email or file folder or SharePoint site, but it really automates that whole process, saving you lots of time. And then the key for today's topic is the planning module, and we'll go through the advantage that we have in that planning module, and it is also based out of Excel. We're going to start most of our planning templates in Excel and go over to the planning side and integrate that into the warehouse. And then we've also got a tool that will allow us to do this via the web. So if I wanted to do my planning via the web and have the users input via the web, I've got that. We'll see that as of today. And also on top of that, if we wanted to incorporate Power BI into our solution, we can connect that directly into that warehouse. So a little bit more about the data warehouse. I'm not going to go through all these points, but once again, a true multi-source data warehouse. we have incorporated pretty much any data from any system. We have not found a system that we have not been able to integrate that data into the data warehouse. It reduces time in terms of the implementation. It has a user-friendly interface, so we can actually, a lot of the functions that you were relying on your IT folks to use before, now you can do it yourself as the end user, putting the power in the end user's hands. We've got the ability to have all sorts of trees. So an example would be, let's say I've got a regional tree, and we've got the U.S. divided by east and west, that we make a tree for that then drives down to the state, which may drive down to a county and to a state. And that's all administered by the end user. And we've got advanced business rules such as currencies, eliminations. It also makes that consolidations much easier. The reporting side of it, the reporting can be done through Excel, through the website, can be accessed through a mobile device, so your tablets and your phone, you can actually pull up the reports from the actual reporting side of it. We've got live ERP reporting, so we can do the normal cash flow, the balance sheets, the income statements, as well as maybe sales forecasting reports. We can look at funnels, we can look at operational side of it. Project management, consolidations, very easy in our tool. And we've got the ability to drill down, which is very important because I may need to drill down into the AP and see what's happening with, which vendor that I was paying, what were the line item details. And, the whole process is made, it's very simple, easy to learn. It's a lot of drag and drop, and really makes that reporting side of it easier. And if you are interested to explore the reporting side of it, since that's not our focus today, please contact us and we will walk you through how to build a report in BI360. The budgeting side, which is our focus today, it's designed out of Excel. We can deploy it either through the web or we can deploy it in through the Excel side of it. It'll do our budgeting, our forecasting. We can have as many budgets and as many forecasts as we want. So I may have version 1, version 2, and then a final because I have that flexibility with that data warehouse. There's a lot of pre-configured templates out there. So we've got revenue templates, expense templates, payroll templates, let's say your capital acquisitions projects. But we always remember that each organization is different, and so those templates are suggestions. And because it is based out of Excel, we can modify those to what your organization is looking like. We've got the normal cash flow balance sheet, the what-if analysis, and we've got immediate access to all the data that I need for the budgeting. And that was one of the issues about the budgeting side of things that was always frustrating historically, especially things like payroll. I'd have to export payroll, get it into the system. Now I've got everything at my fingertips that I need to do the budgeting process properly. Workflow is built into it, and notification functionality. Also, what I can do in the planning module is with that workflow, I can also add comments in there. I can load those comments into the warehouse. So that may be comments on the workflow. It may be comments on a variance that I may have from budget last year to this year, or it may be a strategic plan that I can load into there. And on top of that, we can take care of very complex allocations. And we've had some real doozies out there in terms of allocations, and we've always been able to incorporate that into the tool. So one of the other exciting features is that we can take your current strategic plan that you have right now, and a lot of times companies spend a lot of time on the strategic plan process. They get the strategic plan done and then it sits on the shelf, and then every once in a while it's reviewed, but it's not monitored, it's not tracked. We're not having those initiatives integrated into a system that we can use for tracking. And if we look here, this is the normal process. We talk about the strategic plan, we get the budgets in there, we formulate the budget off the strategic plan. From the budgets we then go to the actual results, and we're comparing the results to the budget, which then that's going to circle back around to our strategic plan and how we're doing to that, and what is that going to look for the next strategic planning cycle. Here's just an example of how you can track, your strategic plan and have accountability to your strategic plan and the initiatives. So you've got your initiatives by individuals, you have their tasks, and here's just a little quick scorecard that we can see, that how are we doing in terms of accomplishing those tasks with the strategic plan. Now, quickly, here's an example of some customers across our industries that we have been servicing on the BI360, and this is just a sample list, but you'll see some of the names that you may recognize, like Quicken and NASCAR, and maybe some of the sports teams, Goodwill. But we've done some tremendous implementations with some great companies out there and saved them a tremendous amount of time. So with that, why don't we step out of the PowerPoint here, and we're going to jump into our web portal. So let me pull that up real quick. So with our web portal, we're going to actually see the tool. And let me get in there. And the nice thing about the portal is we've got security around the portal. And we've got security that is uses and works with Windows AD, and we've got the ability to limit pretty much anything that you have from a state, from a general ledger, from a department. We can limit people very tightly in terms of what they can see or can't see, or what they can input into a budget. So very strong rule-based security in the system. So the great thing about the portal, we're now in the portal, and we've got this little accordion dashboard, which we can see some of the reports out there. Some of the great things that we have out here also is I've got, what are the things that I've recently looked at. So I can see the reports that I most recently visit. I also have my favorites out there. So, if I've got certain reports that I need to run my business with, I've got those in my favorites, and it's really quickly and easy to add a favorite. We've got a little star up at the top of our report. I can just click on that, and that instantly becomes one of my favorite reports. In here, you can see we've got different looks and feels in here. We've got a dashboard looking feel of a report in here, and then we've got also reports in here that are more looking like Excel, and they actually were developed in Excel and then pushed up into the warehouse. And one of the questions I get is, how hard is it to push your report up into the warehouse or into the web portal? And it is as easy as one click of the button. After you've got your report done, it'll push it up into the web portal, and then it has access to the individuals out there that you designate. The great thing about the web portal, and this is one of the things that you don't see when you distribute reports with Excel, is I can track the statistics. So I can see who has looked at the report, which reports are the most popular reports. I've had many companies that were producing a lot of reports, and I had one CFO came in and said, he came into a new company. He says, I'm not producing a single report until somebody asks me. They went from 50 reports down to 10 reports. But if he had the web portal, he would have been able to see which reports were being used and which ones weren't, which is very valuable information, I think, to the individuals writing reports, because they ask the next question, what can I do different? So we've got lots of abilities to look at reports in different views. We can look at it in kind of the thumbnail sketch and run down and click on the reports you want. You can look at them in detail. I particularly like the accordion. It's a kind of a nice look and feel. The other thing that we have in the web portal is we have the ability to create basically what I call as a workflow or storyline. So these are basically folders that we've created, and it's going to walk us through the process of creating a budget. And you could have this also for your reports out there. What's the process that we do where we actually go through and we look at how we're doing as an organization? I've seen some organizations to where they put all their KPIs in here. They've put the strategic plan that they're monitoring on the monthly basis. They've got their variance analysis. So everything is in here, so when they actually go through their analysis of their monthly analysis of how well we're doing, they just walk through the storyline and walk through the different folders and the reports that are in each storyline. So So let's dive into the budgeting side of the world. So in the budgeting side, we typically will start with your strategic plan. And then here we've got, the SWOT analysis, how well, what are our core values, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what's the purpose of the organization. So we start with that. This is all stored up into the data warehouse. And then we've got the different initiatives that we have that support that strategic plan. And I can take those initiatives and we can follow through each one of those initiatives on a monthly basis. Once again, putting the comments in there, telling us how well we're doing. So you can see on a monthly basis those comments and review those comments. So if all of a sudden I see a trend in my comments saying, we had other priorities coming across, but this was a highly important strategic initiative and action item to support the strategic plan, then I'm going to want to make sure that we either reallocate resources so that we can get that initiative done, or we basically take those things that were on the individual's plates and we push it off to somebody else. But it gives us to be able to monitor those on a monthly basis. From here, we take our strategic plan. We're going to push that down into the budgeting and into the forecasting side of the world. So in our budgeting, we're going to actually pull this report up, and we're going to actually run this report. So this report is basically going to give me the actuals through a certain time period. So let's back up one time period. So we're going to go back to, because let's say my budgeting process started in, let's say, September, and I'm going to back up one. And we're going to say OK, and we're going to run this real quick. And you'll see that I only had 2 forecasts before, and now I've got 3 forecasts, 3 months of forecast. So this is a dynamic report. Depending on what month I run it on as a parameter, it's going to change. So let's say I started my budgeting process in September, but I also have actuals in September. So as I work down through my budgeting process, and let's say now I have actuals in October, I can click up here and say, what are the forecasts for October? So I can go through each one of these. I also have parameters up here so I can determine what region do I want to run this for, or what country do I want to run it for. Do I want to run it for Asia? Do I want to run it for the U.S.? I'm going to say let's run this for the U.S. for Department 300. And we're going to refresh that. And that's going to pull this up. And then we can go ahead and start entering some information in here. So if I wanted to enter information about the marketing budget, I can actually pull up the marketing side, and I can say, do I want to spread this information? And typically when I have marketing, there's a lot of line items that go under the marketing side. So let's say I wanted details about that line item. So I may want to click Add, and I may want to say I want to add in, let's say, brochures. I may want to add another one. Let's say I'm going to have a big expense on brochures. Let's say I've got 5,000 in there for brochures. I'm going to add another line items. Let's say I've got a seminar that I've got coming up, and we know that seminar is coming up in December, and we're going to spend 50,000 on that. So I've got the line item detail supporting each one of the line items that I'm going to put in here. When I can say OK, it's automatically going to put that information in. Any information that I right-click and I can see the detail on, we can also report on any of this detail. All right. I can also, let's say I just know that I want to put in a dollar amount, and I'm going to put in donations. We're going to do a nice end-of-the-year donation, so we're going to put in $5,000 for the end-of-the-year budget for the donations that we're going to do. Special gift, we did great for the beginning of the year, and so we're going to give back in some of the donations. Once I get done filling all this back, the first thing I'll need to do is I can click on this button and say store the data back. It's going to go out, and I just stored the data back up into the data warehouse, and then I'm done, and now that's available for anybody that may, as we go through and start doing our reporting. So I may get done with Department 300, and then let's say I want to go to Finance and Accounting. I do the same thing, and go to Finance Accounting, and I hit refresh. That's going to refresh our budget or our forecast here, and then I can start entering the information in on the forecasting for the finance side. And these can be distributed, and the nice thing again, I also have this rule-based in terms of security. So finance can't see the sales and marketing, and sales and marketing can't see the production side of it unless you want them to. But you can restrict what people see out there. In this example, we don't have any of the salaries out there because this organization did not want the salaries to be seen, but we can display what the salaries are for each individual, and we'll see that as we go through the budgeting process. But as we get done through the forecast, we get the forecast done. Now I've got an annualized forecast that I can put into my budget templates. So let's go back into our warehouse, and we'll start looking at our annual budgets here. So the first thing we do with the annual budget is we're going to start with the assumptions. And for these assumptions, these are just some examples of assumptions. Every time I go into an organization, they're typically driving their assumptions from different drivers, different mechanisms. So, here we've got the payroll taxes as an example. We've got the monthly benefits. We've got the capital cycle in here. We've got the air travel, or we've got our travel assumptions down here based upon which country you're going to, so that we can reference these when we actually build our templates. Now, we've had all sorts of assumptions that have been built in there in terms of memberships, in terms of FTE, assumptions. It really depends on your organization and those assumptions. But the nice thing is I can make one change in my assumption page, and that flows through to all my templates that I have out there. Once again, we're looking at ways we can streamline this process. So once I'm done with doing the assumptions, I'm going to go back into my library. I'm going to follow my workflow, and I'm going to go to the next thing. Typically, the big things when we talk about budgeting and reporting, the budgeting cycle, the big things typically and the harder things that typically happen typically are the revenue, the personnel, because there's so many moving parts on the personnel side of it, and then the expenses, and the final thing that's typically challenging, depending on the organization, is the allocation methodology. So let's go ahead and start with the revenue here. And here we've got the ability to look at each one of our customers out there, and we've got the different product lines we have out here. We've got what the sales were for the previous year, and in our templates here we've got the different quantities that we can input. Anything in the template that we typically deem as yellow or whatever color you designate, this is our input section. So we can change the inputs in here and giving us what we think our quantity is, what we believe our gross margin is, and we do that by month. So as I scroll across here, we can see this by each month that we have out there and forecast for each month. So we get a strong sales forecast. And that's the important about forecasts and updating it. Budgets, by the time you get to November, December, the end of the year, those forecasts have changed pretty radically. So having the ability to forecast on a frequently basis is very nice. One of our customers, their forecasting was very important to them, and they took their process that they were going through, and it was taking them a month to do their forecasting, the reforecast, which was a very long time. They put the BI360 product in, and they took that month process down to 3 days, which is a huge time savings on their side of it. And once again, they could spend their time doing the proper analysis versus, being deep in the just creating the budget. Next thing we're going to jump to is we're going to jump to the personnel side of things. So we're going to pull this up, and we basically have a template now that lists each individual person out there, and we've got their title, and we're putting in their hire dates. We're putting in, you look at, again, once again, these yellow sections are the sections we're going to actually input data for. We've got the rate that's coming from the payroll system, and we've got their end date, their salaries, and the benefits. Now this is all going to drive our report. Now this is a fun template because we're actually storing this into 2 modules. We're pulling a lot of our data from our payroll system, whether it be ADP UltiPro, whatever payroll system you have. We're populating that. We're saving all that time of trying to get the personnel in there, manipulate that Excel spreadsheet. It's automatically already there. And now we can start making some changes in here. And we can say, I'm going to hire this person, and the nice thing is we've got this nice drop down. Say I'm going to hire this person in June, or I may want to decide if this one's going to be hired instead of there. We're going to do that in May, and this is a TBH. I can put in what hourly rates. These are the hours worked. Now for the salary, you know, we're going to say this is a full-time person, but down here we may have part-time persons, and those will be put in the number of hours that they're going to work from a part-time basis. We've got the rate, we've got the salary. In this case, the rate is determined by the salary we put in. So let's say we put another $80,000 person in there. They're not going to have a monthly increase, but once again, the monthly increase is a drop-down. Once again, saving us a lot of time. We put in the percentage that we're going to increase. This guy up here didn't get an increase, but you can put an increase via percentage or by dollar amount, and then you can say whether they're eligible for benefits. Well, yes, these guys are eligible for benefits. So we're going to drop down and say yes, yes, and yes. And the part-time people right now in this example are not eligible for benefits. So we're going to scroll across here, and we can see we've got the salaries here. And we scroll across, we see the compensation, total compensation. We see the taxable income. And then we start diving down into some of the details here. So I can see now my FICA, and this is my FICA calculation by month. I've got these input sections in here that came from our original template for our input section and the assumptions page. I've got the FUTA, the SUTA. Once again, our max and mins are there from the assumptions page. And end of the day, I've got the FTE. Now, the interesting thing about this template is we're storing part of our budget back into the payroll module. But down, if we look down at the bottom of our sheet here, we see we'll have an impact of what this has for each of the GL account numbers. And the GL account numbers for the total salaries will be uploaded for each of those departments also. So from payroll, we're going to jump back into our warehouse, into our folder, and we're going to say no. And we're going to look at an expense here real quick. So on our expenses, we're going to dive into here. And this is going to look very similar to our forecast that we were looking at, but instead of having a couple of months that we're forecasting, we're now budgeting for the full month or the full year. So once again, we can right-click on here. We can see the detail of what each of the line items are for. So that was an example of our conferences and seminars coming across. I can look at, entering in, oh, I didn't have anything in accounting. Once again, I can enter the data in, or I can actually right-click, and I may want to say, I want to spread. Last year I spent $6,124 in the, I know that's going to go up this year, so let's say that's going to go to $6,500, and I may want to say I want to spread this by what happens historically. So, and then let's hit apply. And then it's going to go and look at what the trend was for the previous year and apply that trend. I can do that also for a straight line. There's a lot of different methodologies that I can distribute that. Or I can say, give me exactly what I had last year, which was 6124. And let's say I just wanted to increase it by, and let's say I wanted to increase it by 3%. And we can apply that. And now I've just increased it by 3%. Say OK. And now that data is coming across in there. Once I get done through each one of these line items, then I can go in and hit save. But I can do this for each department, each entity, or I can combine these together. A lot of times for certain templates, we're combining a bunch of departments together because I have one person that's responsible for maybe a one line item. Once again, we've got a lot of flexibility because this is based out of Excel. End of the day, I get done, I hit store, and I store my data up into the warehouse. So if I look at now, go back into our storyline, let's say I've got all my templates done. I'm not going to show you the templates today on, let's say the capital. There's some other templates that we have out there, but I want to monitor to see how we're doing from getting the budgets done. Well, we can see we've got, user 1, user 2, user 3. We can see how they're doing in terms of the assumptions page, the personnel, the revenue, the expense models, see if they've been approved, if they have opened it, whether it's been closed, or if it's waiting for approval. We can track how our end users are doing. So we can say, we've got 2 weeks before we need to get the budget done. I can see how we're doing, then I get down to a week and I see there's a lot of them that have not opened the file. Well, I'm going to want to go to that end user, kind of give them encouragement, see if they need any help to make sure that we hit the deadlines. But it gives me that viewpoint into what's happening with those budget forms as I send those out to the end users and they start filling them out. Very important in terms of being able to have a handle on your budgeting process. Once we've looked at the workflow, we've got it all done, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to look at our budget dashboard. So I'm going to click on my budget dashboard and get a view and see how are we doing from a budgeting standpoint by department. So I can click on my sales and marketing. As I click on my sales and marketing, you can see that all the graphs changed in here. You see how we're doing budget versus actuals. I can see what the top expenses are. I can see what the trend looks like for the budget. I can click on my admin, my finance. You can see everything changes so I've got this nice interactive budget dashboard so I can review things, see how we're doing. Are we hitting the targets that we gave to the end users? In a lot of cases, there's, you send the templates out, there's changes. You can say, okay, we're not quite where we wanted to hit from the mark. Let's go back and say, here's the comments that we want you to make some adjustments for. You may want to bring these categories down by a certain percentage, and it gives you the ability to monitor it. End of the day, we're going to need to spit out our report. So we're going to jump into our reporting here. And we've got the traditional balance sheet, cash flow, we've got the personnel file, but we're going to look at the P&L variance report. So I'm going to click on the P&L variance report, and the nice thing is I've got this modern day P&L, and I can actually look at the different line items in here, and we've got the revenue. We can see what our forecast is, what our budget is, and then what our variance is to each one of these. As we scroll down, we can actually break it down, and we can see what the detailed line items for each of one of our groupings that we have in our income statement here, and look at the line item detail and see how well we're doing. We can highlight with conditional formatting using the power of Excel to highlight the things that we really need to focus in on, whether we're doing good or things that we need to focus on. The other thing I have on the warehouse is I can put a comment section over here in column J, and I can actually start just typing what my comments are. So as I go through the review, I can do some research. I can right-click on these and maybe drill down into them. I have the ability to drill down into some of the detail. So let's look at the sales and marketing. Say I wanted to right-click on here, and in some cases we've got, there we go. I can go down and look at the summary detail. And I can click and see where the dollars are come across as I drill down. I can drill down the general ledger. I can drill down into the journal entry detailed line items. I can also drill down into the budget and look at the budget line items that we were budgeting it before. So end of the day, after I've gotten done through my review, and maybe I've stored my comments back up into the warehouse, I want to share this. So I may want to go up here and I may want to click on share. I can actually send this QR code out to somebody. I could probably download this file, and let's say we just download that into a temp file. So we're just going to download it here. We're going to hit, let's pick a file, say P&L budget 2016. We hit save. So that's going to save. We've got the download complete over here, and then we're going to go over into our downloads. And we're going to open that thing, open up our budget report real quick. grab that. And once we get that, we will, let's see, grab that P&L file. Once I get that P&L file, the nice thing about the P&L file is once that is in there, all the formatting stays the same. So, you know, anything that's in Excel that we had in Excel that we deemed as a formula, all the formulas stay in there. Everything is, you know, precise on that side of it. Let's see if I can grab that download. And we can start manipulating. We can start saying, what if I do it this way? I can type in a new revenue figure and start doing my what if analysis. And the nice thing is the what if analysis will also, nothing gets stored up into the warehouse if I wanted to do what if analysis in Excel, which is really nice. I can also send this file out as an email. I'm going to click on email, send it out as an email. So we've got lots of ways to distribute this and play with our what if analysis. As we get done with that and we've gone through, we finalized the budget. Once again, I can have as many budgets and forecasts as I want. So then I can then push those out into you know, the different scenarios is what we call them. So I may have budget scenario 1, budget scenario 2, and I can do the comparisons to see how that budget scenario changed. And then, you know, we can go into our reporting and analysis. And I'm going to jump back into, you know, the presentation now. But you've seen how we can streamline that process. Once again, we've seen many customers build very complex budgeting processes. And everyone that I've seen out there has saved significant amount of time in terms of their budgeting process. And once again, allowing them to do the proper analysis that they were never able to do before. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was, you know, what are the customers saying out there about, you know, the BI360 product? And, you know, one of the big things out there, we look at Phil's comment here, one of the biggest benefits was the ability to streamline the internal processes. Once again, saving lots of hours from that Excel jockeying. Down here, Marcus is telling us, you know, he's taken away that data entry side of it and trying to get the data into Excel spreadsheets and hard-coded and, you know, links breaking, and that was my world. You know, I had these massive Excel files, and typically one person knew that in the organization, and, you know, God forbid they win the lottery and they are gone. Trying to pick up and learn that process becomes quite a chore. So having it in a warehouse and stored in a warehouse simplifies that model significantly, but you still have the complexity that you were able to build into Excel. Finally, the last one from Michael here is indicating that he doesn't need that, you know, IT, that army of IT people. He's able to do a lot of those processes that IT had to do before. He can do it himself as an end user, saving him a tremendous amount of time and money. So the next steps, let's say you're interested, this sounds good. The next steps is we would go through a discussion and have a conversation with you to understand your needs and things that you would like to see from a data discovery. We identify where your data is throughout your organization. We would work through a software estimate and the implementation estimate. We would provide you with what the system requirements were. Then from you guys, you would have to work with your teams, make a decision. We'd work on then putting a plan together, a detailed plan of how to implement the software, get you guys trained, and we've got lots of resources from a training standpoint of it. Solver provides a web portal that gives a knowledge base. They have videos out there. They've got different white papers. We're a tremendous resource because we've been there, done that. We've gone through very complicated systems out there in terms of implementation, so we know the things that are the most streamlined to be able to make sure you get up and running as efficient as possible. So from there, let's take any questions, and let me look through our questions here real quick. Okay, so one of the questions here is, what other data sources can we bring into the warehouse? So we've got multiple examples of some of the difficult data sources can be a cloud solution. And if you have a cloud solution and they don't allow you access into the data, how are you going to pull that down into the warehouse? And we had an example where we had an actual accounting system based in the cloud. And what we did there was we had them create CSV files. We put those into an FTP site, and from that FTP site, we would grab that data and integrate it into the BI360 data warehouse. And before, their process to be able to write reports was brutal. And now we've totally streamlined that process. So, like I said, pretty much any data source out there, we can bring that into the warehouse. Another question is, my company's templates for the budgeting and forecasting look pretty different from what you showed in the presentation. Can we incorporate the way our company budgets into the planning module? And I would say yes, and we've done that for many organizations out there. The beauty is it's based out of Excel, so we have that ability to customize it, put in different formulas. We can make it the way you guys run your organization, and that's a really important fact because I've seen a lot of black box systems out there that say you got to kind of fit in our box to be able to forecast properly. Well, we've taken the beauty of what we've done before in the past in the Excel model. We still have that same flexibility to really create a solution that works with your organization. And let's see, we've got time enough for one more question. Okay, this has to do about allocations. I have different allocations based on the different GL account numbers. An example would be I allocate FTEs. Let's see. Okay, so basically based on the GL account number, they may allocate based upon an FTE, or on a different GL account number, they may allocate that based upon membership. Can this be accomplished with the tool? And that's a great example. We have actually done that with another client, very similar situation, and the flexibility that we have in the data warehouse, we can designate which account numbers are based upon an FTE. We have a flag in there saying FTE, or we have a flag in there clicked on membership, and based upon the different departments, they're going to have different memberships and FTEs, and we created that allocation process, very complex allocation process, but worked like a charm in the BI360 tool. So with that, let's see, do we have any more questions? All right, okay, I don't see any further questions at this time. I want to thank you very much for attending. Once again, if you have further questions, feel free to contact us, and you can see my contact information on the screen, either the phone, on our website. You can click on, there's an email there if you want to send us an email, click on the website, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you want to see different templates, if you want to see the reporting side of it, we'd be more than happy to show how that can fit in your organization. Once again, thank you for attending, and we look forward to talking with you in the future. Bye now.